Picture this. Two people walk into a meeting with the exact same proposal, the same data, the same slides. One walks out with a signed deal. The other walks out empty-handed. What's the difference? It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's something far more powerful and far more learnable. It's influence. Welcome to the hidden psychology of influence, where you'll discover the invisible forces that make people say yes, the mental triggers that bypass resistance, and the communication secrets that turn strangers into allies. This isn't about manipulation. This is about mastering the art of ethical persuasion, understanding human psychology, and communicating in ways that create genuine connection and mutual benefit. Every day, you're surrounded by influence. Advertisers use it to sell products. Politicians use it to win votes. Leaders use it to inspire teams. And whether you realize it or not, you're constantly being influenced and influencing others. The question is, are you doing it consciously or unconsciously? Are you using these principles to create value, or are you leaving success on the table? In this audiobook, you'll learn the hidden psychology behind influence. You'll discover why some people seem to effortlessly get what they want while others struggle to be heard. You'll understand the 6 universal principles of persuasion, how to build instant trust and rapport, the art of framing your requests for maximum impact, body language secrets that amplify your influence, and how to ethically guide people toward decisions that benefit everyone involved. This knowledge will transform your career, your relationships, and your ability to create the life you want. Because here's the truth. Influence isn't about being pushy or manipulative. It's about understanding what motivates people, speaking their language, and presenting your ideas in ways that resonate deeply. When you master influence, you don't force people to say yes. You make it easy, natural, and desirable for them to say yes. So let's begin this journey together. Let's unlock the hidden psychology of influence and discover how to make anyone say yes, not through tricks or deception, but through genuine understanding and strategic communication. Your transformation starts now. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Influence. Understanding human psychology. Before we dive into specific techniques, we need to understand something fundamental about human nature. People don't make decisions based purely on logic. In fact, neuroscience research shows that approximately 90% of our decisions are driven by emotion, and we use logic later to justify those emotional choices. Think about your last major purchase. Maybe it was a car, a house, or even a smartphone. You probably told yourself you chose it because of practical reasons. Fuel efficiency, location, features. But if you're honest, there was an emotional component. You imagined how you'd feel driving that car, living in that house, or holding that phone. The emotion came first. The logic came second. This is the first principle of influence. Emotion drives decision, logic justifies it. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop trying to convince people with facts and figures alone. Instead, you connect with their emotions first, then provide the logical framework that allows them to feel good about their decision. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. A salesman named David struggled for years to close deals. He knew his product inside and out. He had all the statistics, all the features, all the comparisons to competitors. But his closing rate was terrible. Then one day, his manager gave him advice that transformed his career. Stop selling features. Start selling feelings. David completely changed his approach. Instead of launching into product specifications, he started asking questions. What frustrates you about your current solution? How would it feel to never worry about that problem again? What would it mean for your business if this worked perfectly? He listened deeply to their answers. He mirrored their concerns. He painted vivid pictures of their desired future state. And then, almost as an afterthought, he explained how his product made that future possible. His closing rate tripled within 60 days. Same product, same market, different approach. He stopped trying to convince people logically and started connecting with them emotionally. That's the power of understanding human psychology. Now, let's talk about the second principle. People act in their own self-interest. This isn't cynical. It's reality. Everyone is tuned into the same mental radio station. WIFM, what's in it for me? When you present an idea, propose a partnership, or make a request, people's first unconscious question is always, how does this benefit me? The master of influence understands this and makes it explicit. They don't hide the mutual benefit or pretend their request is purely altruistic. Instead, they clearly articulate the value for the other person. They answer WIFM before it's even asked. Here's how this works in practice. Imagine you're asking your boss for a raise. The amateur approach sounds like this. I've been here 3 years and I work really hard. I deserve more money. This is all about you. Your tenure. Your effort. Your needs. Your boss hears this and thinks, that's not my problem. Now listen to the influence approach. Over the past 3 years, I've increased our department's efficiency by 30%, saved the company $50,000 through process improvements, and taken on leadership responsibilities beyond my role. I'd like to discuss adjusting my compensation to reflect the value I'm creating and ensure I can continue contributing at this level. Do you see the difference? Same request. Completely different framing. The first focuses on what you want. The second focuses on the value you create and positions the raise as an investment in continued performance. This leads us to the third foundational principle. People need to feel understood before they'll be influenced. Have you ever tried to convince someone of something, and the harder you pushed, the more they resisted? That's because you were trying to influence them before they felt heard. There's a powerful concept in negotiation called tactical empathy. It means demonstrating that you understand someone's position, concerns, and emotions before you present your own perspective. When people feel understood, their psychological defenses lower. They become open to influence. But when they feel misunderstood or dismissed, they become rigid and resistant. Let me give you an example. A mother is trying to convince her teenage son to focus more on his studies. The common approach is, you need to study more or you'll never get into a good college. Predictable response. Eye roll, shutdown, resistance. Now watch what happens with tactical empathy first. I know you're tired after practice and the last thing you want to do is homework. I get that school feels overwhelming sometimes, and you'd rather be hanging out with friends or gaming. That's completely normal. Can we talk about finding a balance that doesn't make you miserable but keeps you on track? Suddenly, the resistance drops. Why? Because the son feels understood. His feelings were validated. Now he's open to problem solving together. Same goal. Completely different emotional outcome. These 3 principles form the foundation of all influence. Emotion drives decisions, people act in self-interest, and understanding must precede influence. Master these, and you're already ahead of 95% of people trying to persuade others. But foundation alone isn't enough. Now we need to build on it with specific, proven techniques. That's where the 6 universal principles of persuasion come in. These principles have been tested across cultures, industries, and contexts. They work because they're hardwired into human psychology, and when you learn to use them ethically, you become unstoppable. Understand Chapter 2. The 6 Principles of Persuasion. Your Influence Toolkit. Dr. Robert Cialdini spent decades researching the psychology of influence and persuasion. His groundbreaking work identified 6 universal principles that guide human behavior. These aren't tricks or hacks. They're deep psychological patterns that have evolved over thousands of years. When you understand and apply them, you're working with human nature, not against it. Let's explore each principle in depth, starting with the principle of reciprocity. Principle 1. Reciprocity. The power of giving first. Reciprocity is simple but profound. When someone gives you something, you feel obligated to give something back. This isn't just politeness. It's a fundamental social rule that exists in every culture. Anthropologists have found that reciprocity is one of the key mechanisms that allowed human societies to develop and thrive. Here's why reciprocity is so powerful for influence. When you give first, you create a psychological debt. The recipient feels uncomfortable until they've returned the favor in some way. This isn't manipulation if you give genuinely and without strings attached. Simply understanding human psychology. Let me share a fascinating study. Researchers conducted an experiment where a waiter brought the check to restaurant tables. In the control group, he simply delivered the check. Average tip: 15%. In the second group, he included one small mint with the check. Average tip: 18%. In the third group, he gave 1 mint per person, then paused, made eye contact, and said, "For you nice people, here's an extra mint." Average tip: 23%. Same service. Different application of reciprocity. Dramatically different results. Now, how do you apply this principle ethically in your life? Start by being genuinely helpful without expecting immediate return. Offer value before asking for value. In business, this might mean providing free resources, insights, or connections. In relationships, it might mean offering support, time, or kindness first. An entrepreneur I know built a multi-million-dollar consulting business entirely through reciprocity. He spent 2 years writing detailed, valuable blog posts, creating free guides, and answering questions in online forums. He gave away his best thinking for free. People felt they owed him something. When he finally launched his paid services, he had a waiting list of clients ready to pay premium rates. He didn't have to sell. Reciprocity sold for him. The key to reciprocity is: give first, give generously, give without keeping score. The returns will come, often in unexpected ways and at unexpected times. Principle 2. Commitment and consistency. The power of small yes. Here's a psychological truth. Once people commit to something, especially publicly, they feel internal and external pressure to behave consistently with that commitment. We have a deep need to appear consistent in our words and actions. Inconsistency makes us feel uncomfortable and damages our self-image. This principle is why free trials work so effectively. Once someone starts using a product, even for free, they begin to identify as a user of that product. Canceling feels like admitting a mistake or being inconsistent. The commitment has been made, even if it was small and low risk. The secret to using commitment and consistency is: start with small requests that people will easily say yes to, then gradually increase the size of your requests. Each small yes makes the next larger yes more likely because people want to stay consistent with their previous behavior. Let me give you a real-world example. Political campaigns understand this deeply. They don't start by asking for a $5,000 donation. First, they ask, "Can you sign this petition?" Easy yes. Then, "Can you display this yard sign?" Small commitment, but now you've publicly declared your support. Then, "Can you volunteer for 2 hours?" Now you're behaviorally invested. By the time they ask for money, you've already committed in multiple small ways. Saying yes to the donation feels consistent with your previous actions. In your personal life, use commitment and consistency by getting small agreements before big requests, asking people to make public statements of support, reminding people of their past commitments and values. Here's a powerful phrase. Based on what you said earlier about valuing innovation, I thought you'd be interested in this opportunity. You're linking your request to their previous commitment, making agreement feel consistent. Principle 3. Social proof. The power of the crowd. Humans are social animals. We look to others for cues about how to behave, especially in uncertain situations. This is social proof. We assume that if many people are doing something, it must be the right thing to do. Think about online reviews. You're considering 2 restaurants. One has 5 reviews averaging 4 stars. The other has 500 reviews averaging 4 stars. Which do you choose? The second one, obviously. Why? Social proof. 500 people can't be wrong. This is why businesses desperately seek testimonials, why influencers matter, and why bestseller lists sell books. Social proof is especially powerful in 3 situations: uncertainty, similarity, and plurality. When we're uncertain what to do, we look to others. When we see people similar to us doing something, we're more likely to follow. And when we see large numbers doing something, we assume it's correct. Here's how to leverage social proof ethically. Share testimonials from people similar to your audience. Use numbers to demonstrate popularity. Over 10,000 people have already joined. Highlight endorsements from respected authorities or organizations. Create case studies showing real results from real people. A software company I consulted for struggled with conversions on their website. They had a great product but low sales. I suggested one simple change: add a counter showing total users. We installed. Join over 75,000 professionals already using our platform. Conversions increased by 40% overnight. Same product, same website. Just added social proof. The psychology is simple. If 75,000 people trust this company, it must be safe for me to trust them too. Social proof reduces perceived risk and increases confidence in decisions. Principle 4. Authority. The power of expertise. We're conditioned from childhood to respect and obey authority figures. Teachers, doctors, police officers, experts. This isn't weakness. It's efficiency. We can't become experts in everything, so we rely on the judgment of those who have expertise. Authority is a powerful shortcut to influence. Studies have shown that people will follow instructions from authority figures even when those instructions conflict with their own judgment. The famous Milgram experiment demonstrated this in a disturbing way. The ethical application of authority is: build genuine expertise and demonstrate it credibly. How do you establish authority? Through credentials, titles, publications, experience, and confident communication. A doctor's white coat increases compliance with medical advice, not because the coat has power, but because it symbolizes authority and expertise. In practical terms, you build authority by sharing your credentials early in interactions, writing articles or books in your field, speaking at conferences or events, being introduced by others who highlight your expertise, using confident, decisive language. Notice how experts speak. They make clear statements, avoid hedging language like maybe or perhaps, and cite specific data or experience. Here's an example. 2 financial advisors give the same investment advice. The first says, you might want to consider diversifying your portfolio. The second says, based on 30 years of experience and current market analysis, I recommend diversifying your portfolio across these 3 sectors. Same advice. The second carries more weight because authority has been established. You don't need to be arrogant to leverage authority. You simply need to make your expertise visible and communicate with confidence. Principle 5. Liking. The power of connection. This principle is beautifully simple. We say yes to people we like. We're more likely to be influenced by friends than strangers, by attractive people than unattractive people, by those similar to us than those different from us. Research shows that physical attractiveness, similarity, compliments, cooperation, and repeated positive contact all increase liking. This is why salespeople try to find common ground. Oh, you went to State University? Me too. Instant connection. Increased liking. Greater influence. The ethical application of liking is: genuinely connect with people, find authentic common ground, and build real relationships. Don't fake similarity or manipulate with false compliments. Instead, be curious about others, find genuine areas of connection, and approach interactions with warmth and openness. A master networker I know has built an incredible career through the liking principle. She starts every conversation by finding something to genuinely appreciate or connect with. Maybe it's a shared interest, a mutual connection, or simply asking thoughtful questions and listening intently. People walk away from conversations with her feeling valued and understood. Is it any surprise that when she needs help, people are eager to assist her? Here's the key. People can sense authenticity. If you're faking interest or forcing connection, it backfires. But when you genuinely care about others and seek authentic connection, liking develops naturally, and with it, influence. Principle 6. Scarcity. The power of limited availability. We value things more when they're rare or becoming less available. Scarcity triggers fear of loss, which is a more powerful motivator than potential gain. This is why limited time offers work, why exclusive memberships are desirable, and why we want things more when they're hard to get. The psychology of scarcity operates on two principles. Opportunities seem more valuable when they're less available, and people hate losing freedoms or opportunities they once had. This is why a sale ending tonight creates urgency, why exclusive access feels special, and why we rush to buy something that's selling out. Ethical application of scarcity means be honest about limitations, create genuine exclusivity where appropriate, and help people understand the real cost of waiting. Don't manufacture false scarcity. That's manipulation. But if there are genuine limitations, time constraints, or limited availability, communicate them clearly. A coach I know increased her client conversion rate dramatically by being honest about capacity. I only work with 10 clients at a time to ensure everyone gets my full attention. I currently have 2 spots available this quarter. This isn't pressure. It's reality. But it triggers scarcity, which increases the perceived value of working with her. Here's how to apply scarcity in your influence efforts. Highlight limited availability honestly, emphasize unique features or opportunities, create deadlines when appropriate, and explain what people lose by not taking action. But always be truthful. False scarcity destroys trust and undermines long-term influence. These 6 principles, reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity, are your influence toolkit. They work individually, but they're exponentially more powerful when combined. A request that leverages multiple principles becomes nearly irresistible. Imagine this. You're asking someone to support a charitable initiative. You apply reciprocity by first helping them with a project. You use commitment by getting them to agree that helping children is important. You leverage social proof by mentioning that 50 colleagues have already joined. You establish authority by sharing the credentials of the organization's leadership. You build liking through genuine conversation and finding common values. And you create scarcity by noting the fundraising deadline. Each principle adds weight. Together, they create momentum that makes yes feel natural and desirable. This isn't manipulation. It's strategic communication that respects how human psychology actually works. Now that you understand the principles, let's explore how to apply them in real conversations and negotiations. Chapter 3. Building Trust and Credibility. The foundation of lasting influence. You can use every influence technique in the world, but if people don't trust you, none of it matters. Trust is the currency of influence. Without it, you're just noise. With it, you're a valued advisor, partner, or friend. So how do you build trust quickly and authentically? It starts with understanding what trust really is. Trust has 3 components: competence, reliability, and integrity. People trust you when they believe you're capable of doing what you say, you'll consistently follow through, and you have their best interests at heart. Let's break down each component, starting with competence. Competence means you know what you're talking about. You have relevant expertise, experience, or knowledge. This connects directly to the authority principle we discussed earlier. You build perceived competence through credentials, past successes, confident communication, and demonstrated expertise. But here's what many people miss: competence alone isn't enough. I've met incredibly smart, capable people who nobody trusts because they lack reliability or integrity. You can be the most brilliant person in the room, but if people doubt you'll follow through or suspect hidden agendas, your influence evaporates. Reliability means you do what you say you'll do, consistently and predictably. This is built through small actions over time. Return calls when you promise. Meet deadlines. Show up on time. Keep commitments, even minor ones. Each kept promise is a deposit in your trust account. Each broken promise is a withdrawal. I once worked with a consultant who was brilliant but chronically unreliable. He'd promise deliverables by Friday and send them the following Wednesday. He'd commit to calls and reschedule at the last minute. His ideas were excellent, but his influence was minimal because nobody believed his commitments. Eventually, he lost major clients not because his work was bad, but because his reliability was non-existent. Contrast that with a colleague who was less technically brilliant but incredibly reliable. She underpromised and over-delivered. If she said 3 days, you got it in 2 days. If she committed to something, it happened. Her influence was extraordinary because people trusted her completely. Clients sought her out specifically, often at premium rates, simply because of her reliability. The lesson: protect your reliability like your most valuable asset, because it is. Now let's talk about integrity, the third component of trust. Integrity means people believe you have their interests at heart, not just your own. You're honest. You're transparent about limitations and trade-offs. You don't hide problems or overpromise to make a sale. You tell people what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. Here's a powerful trust-building technique. Volunteer a weakness or limitation early in your pitch. This seems counterintuitive. Why would you point out flaws? Because it demonstrates honesty and builds trust. When you acknowledge a downside, people think, this person is being real with me, not just selling me. That builds trust faster than any amount of polish or perfection. A real estate agent I know uses this brilliantly. When showing properties, she points out problems before clients notice them. I want you to see this crack in the foundation. It's been inspected and isn't structural, but I want you to be aware. The roof is 15 years old, so you'll likely need to replace it within 5 years. Budget about $8,000 for that. Does this cost her sales? No. It increases them. Why? Because clients trust her completely. They know she's not hiding problems. So when she says this is a great house, they believe her. Her reputation for integrity has made her the top agent in her market. This brings us to a crucial insight about influence. Short-term manipulation might get you a quick win, but it destroys long-term influence. Trust is built slowly and lost instantly. Every interaction is either depositing or withdrawing from your trust account. The most influential people are those with massive trust surpluses built through years of competence, reliability, and integrity. So how do you actively build trust in conversations and negotiations? Here are 5 specific techniques that work immediately. Technique 1. Be present and attentive. Put away your phone. Make eye contact. Listen actively. Ask follow-up questions that show you're genuinely engaged. When someone feels truly heard and valued, trust begins immediately. Technique 2. Admit what you don't know. If someone asks a question you can't answer, say, "That's a great question and I don't have that information right now. Let me find out and get back to you by tomorrow." Never fake knowledge. It always backfires. Technique 3. Share credit generously. When things go well, highlight others' contributions before your own. This demonstrates humility and lack of ego, both of which build trust. Technique 4. Follow up proactively. If you discuss something in a meeting, send a summary email within 24 hours. If you promise to send information, do it promptly. These small actions signal reliability and professionalism. Technique 5. Be consistent across contexts. People trust you when you're the same person in different situations. Don't say one thing to one group and something contradictory to another. Consistency signals integrity. Now let's talk about credibility, which is closely related to trust but slightly different. Credibility is about being believable. It's the logical component of trust, while trust also has an emotional component. You build credibility through specific, verifiable facts and outcomes, not vague claims or promises. Compare these two statements. I can help you grow your business versus I helped 3 companies in your industry increase revenue by an average of 42% over 18 months through specific process improvements. Which is more credible? The second, obviously. It's specific, verifiable, and concrete. Credibility is built through specificity, evidence, third-party validation, and consistency between claims and reality. Whenever possible, quantify your claims. Use real numbers, real timelines, real examples. Vague generalities destroy credibility. Specific details build it. Here's an advanced credibility technique. Use reluctant testimony. This means sharing praise or validation from unlikely sources, people who had reason to doubt you or weren't predisposed to like you. When someone who was initially skeptical becomes a strong advocate, their testimony carries enormous weight. Example: I was pretty skeptical about this approach at first. It seemed too simple to work. But after 90 days, we saw a 35% improvement in team productivity. I'm now implementing it across all departments. This testimony is powerful because it acknowledges initial doubt, making the eventual endorsement more believable. One final point about trust and credibility: they compound over time. Your first interaction with someone has minimal trust. But if you consistently demonstrate competence, reliability, and integrity, trust grows exponentially. Your 10th interaction has vastly more influence potential than your first. Your 100th has even more. This is why long-term relationship building is so powerful for influence. The most influential people aren't those who can convince strangers in a single conversation. They're those who have built deep trust with a network of people over years of consistent behavior. When they speak, people listen, not because of clever techniques, but because of accumulated credibility. As we move forward, remember, all influence techniques are amplified by trust and neutralized by distrust. Before you try to influence anyone, ask yourself, have I built sufficient trust for this conversation? If not, invest in trust building first. It's never wasted effort. Understand before. The art of framing. How to present your ideas for maximum impact. 2 people can present identical ideas and get completely different responses. Why? Because influence isn't just about what you say. It's about how you frame it. Framing is the context, perspective, and language you use to present information. The same facts can be framed in ways that inspire action or create resistance. Let me show you the power of framing with a simple example. A doctor tells patients about a surgery. Version 1. This surgery has a 10% mortality rate. Version 2. This surgery has a 90% survival rate. Same statistic. Completely different emotional impact. The first frame triggers fear. The second frame creates confidence. Which frame would make you more likely to proceed with the surgery? This is loss aversion in action, one of the most powerful cognitive biases in human psychology. Research by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated that people feel the pain of loss approximately twice as intensely as the pleasure of equivalent gain. We're more motivated to avoid losing something than to gain something of equal value. Smart communicators use this principle by framing messages in terms of what people will lose by not taking action, rather than only what they'll gain by acting. The fear of missing out, FOMO, is a loss frame that drives enormous amounts of human behavior. Let me give you a business example. A consultant is trying to convince a company to implement new software. Poor framing. This software will increase productivity by 15%. Better framing. Right now, you're losing approximately 3 hours of productivity per employee per week due to inefficient systems. Over a year, that's 6 weeks of lost work per person. This software eliminates that waste. Same benefit. Completely different frame. The first focuses on gain. The second focuses on loss. The second is more motivating because loss aversion is so powerful. But framing goes beyond just loss versus gain. Here are 5 advanced framing techniques that dramatically increase your influence. Framing Technique 1. The contrast frame. Present your proposal alongside a less attractive alternative to make it look more appealing. This is why salespeople often show you the expensive option first before revealing the medium-priced option. The contrast makes the second option feel like a bargain, even if it's still expensive. You can use contrast framing ethically by comparing your proposal to the status quo, showing what happens if no action is taken, presenting multiple options where your preferred choice is in the middle. The key is making your proposal look reasonable by comparison. Framing Technique 2. The identity frame. Connect your request to someone's sense of identity and values. People want their actions to be consistent with how they see themselves. When you frame a request as an expression of their identity, resistance drops dramatically. Example: instead of saying, "Will you donate to this charity?" try, "People who value education and believe every child deserves opportunity are supporting this initiative. Would you like to join them?" You framed the donation as an expression of identity and values, not just a financial transaction. Framing Technique 3. The autonomy frame. People resist being told what to do but embrace making their own choices. Frame your influence as providing options and information, not commands or pressure. Use language like, "You might consider," one option would be, "Some people find it helpful, you're free to choose." This seems weaker, but it's actually more powerful. When people feel their autonomy is respected, they're more open to influence. When they feel pressured, they resist reflexively. This is called psychological reactance, the automatic opposition we feel when our freedom feels threatened. Framing Technique 4. The aspiration frame. Connect your request to someone's goals and aspirations. Show how saying yes moves them toward their desired future. This is the opposite of the loss frame. You're pulling them forward with vision rather than pushing them with fear. Example: you've mentioned wanting to be seen as an industry thought leader. Speaking at this conference would put you in front of 2,000 decision makers and position you as an expert. Does this serve your goal? You're framing the request in terms of their aspiration, making yes feel aligned with their desired identity. Framing Technique 5. The reciprocity frame. Remember the reciprocity principle? You can frame requests to trigger that principle explicitly. "I helped you with X. Now I'm hoping you can help me with Y." This isn't manipulative if the help was genuine. You're simply making the reciprocity expectation clear. Now let's talk about language choices within your frames. The specific words you use carry emotional weight and change perception dramatically. Certain words feel positive and expansive. Others feel negative and limiting. Master influencers choose their words carefully. Compare these word pairs: problem versus challenge, cost versus investment, spend versus allocate, risk versus opportunity, have to versus get to, try versus will. The first word in each pair frames negatively. The second frames positively. Same concept. Different emotional impact. Here's a powerful linguistic technique. Use presuppositional language. This is language that assumes agreement and moves directly to implementation details. Instead of, "Would you be willing to consider this proposal?" try, "When we implement this proposal, which timeline works better for you? Option A or option B?" Do you see what happened? You've presupposed agreement and shifted the conversation to logistics. This isn't manipulation. It's confident framing that makes agreement feel natural. Another linguistic tool: metaphors and analogies. Our brains think in stories and images, not just facts and logic. When you use a vivid metaphor, you're framing your idea in a way that's emotionally resonant and memorable. Example: instead of saying, "We need to improve communication between departments," try, "Right now, our departments are like isolated islands. We need to build bridges so information and ideas can flow freely." The metaphor creates a visual image that makes the problem and solution feel tangible. Now, let's discuss the sequence of framing. The order in which you present information matters enormously. This is called the primacy and recency effect. We remember what comes first and what comes last, and we forget the middle. For maximum influence, structure your presentation like this. Start with your strongest point or most compelling benefit. Present supporting points and details in the middle. End with a powerful call to action or summary of key benefit. Never bury your best arguments in the middle where they'll be forgotten. Also, consider the rule of 3. Humans find groups of 3 inherently satisfying and memorable. This is why speakers often say, "There are 3 reasons why, 3 key benefits, 3 steps to success." If you have 7 points, group them into 3 categories. The human brain loves 3s. One final advanced framing technique: reframing objections. When someone raises a concern or objection, don't argue against it directly. Instead, reframe it as an opportunity or validate it, then redirect. Example: someone says, "This seems expensive." Poor response: "No, it's actually very affordable." Better response: "I appreciate you being cost-conscious. Let's look at this as an investment rather than an expense. The ROI projections show you'll recoup this cost within 6 months and see ongoing returns after that." Does that reframe help? You've validated their concern, reframed the expense as an investment, and provided new information that addresses the objection. This is far more effective than arguing. As you practice these framing techniques, remember the fundamental principle: facts don't speak for themselves. The frame you put around facts determines how they're perceived and whether they inspire action. 2 people can present identical information and get vastly different responses based entirely on framing. Master the art of framing, and you'll find your influence grows exponentially. People won't just hear your ideas. They'll feel compelled by them, not because you manipulated them, but because you presented information in ways that resonate with how humans actually think and make decisions. Chapter 5: Body Language and Nonverbal Influence. The silent persuader words are only a fraction of your influence. Research consistently shows that 55% of communication impact comes from body language, 38% from tone of voice, and only 7% from the actual words spoken. This means if you're only focusing on what you say, you're missing over 90% of your influence potential. Let's start with the most fundamental aspect of nonverbal influence: presence. Presence is the quality of being fully engaged, confident, and grounded in the moment. When you have presence, people pay attention. They lean in. They remember you. Presence isn't about being loud or dominant. It's about being fully there, both physically and mentally. How do you cultivate presence? It starts with your body posture. Stand or sit with your spine straight, shoulders back, chest open. This isn't military rigidity. It's natural alignment that signals confidence and openness. Research by Amy Cuddy at Harvard showed that simply adopting powerful, expansive postures for 2 minutes increases testosterone, decreases cortisol, and makes you feel and appear more confident. Try this right now. Sit up straight, roll your shoulders back, lift your chest, and take 3 deep breaths. Notice how you feel different. More alert, more confident, more ready to engage? That's the power of physiology influencing psychology. Your body language doesn't just communicate to others. It communicates to yourself. Now let's talk about eye contact, one of the most powerful nonverbal influence tools. Appropriate eye contact builds trust, demonstrates confidence, and creates connection. But there's an art to it. Too little eye contact makes you appear nervous, untrustworthy, or disinterested. Too much makes you appear aggressive or uncomfortable. The guideline for Western cultures: maintain eye contact 60 to 70% of the time during conversations. Hold eye contact for 3 to 5 seconds. Then briefly look away before reconnecting. When making an important point, increase eye contact to emphasize the message. When listening, maintain steady eye contact to show engagement and respect. Here's an advanced technique. Use eye contact to include or exclude people in group settings. If you're speaking to a group and want to build alliance with a specific person, direct more eye contact toward them. If someone is being disruptive, you can reduce their influence by limiting eye contact with them. Where your eyes go, attention and energy follow. Let's discuss hand gestures, another critical element of nonverbal influence. Research shows that speakers who use purposeful hand gestures are perceived as more competent, confident, and persuasive than those who keep their hands still or hidden. Effective hand gestures: use open palm gestures to signal honesty and openness. Use steepling where fingertips touch to display confidence and authority. Use illustrative gestures that match your words to increase retention. Keep gestures within your power sphere, the space from your waist to your shoulders. Avoid these gestures: crossed arms which signal defensiveness or closed-mindedness, fidgeting or repetitive movements which signal nervousness, pointing directly at people which can feel aggressive, keeping hands in pockets or behind your back which signals hiding or discomfort. Here's a fascinating study. Researchers analyzed TED Talks and found that the most popular, most viewed talks had speakers who used an average of 465 hand gestures in 18 minutes. The least popular talks had speakers who used an average of 272 gestures. Same stage, same audience. The difference: nonverbal engagement through purposeful hand movements. Now let's explore the concept of mirroring, one of the most subtle and powerful influence techniques. Mirroring is when you subtly match someone's body language, speech patterns, or energy level. This isn't mimicry or mockery. It's creating unconscious rapport by signaling, "I'm like you. We're on the same wavelength." When done naturally, mirroring builds trust and likability without the other person consciously noticing. Their brain registers similarity and connection at a subconscious level. This activates mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. How to mirror effectively: match their posture after a slight delay, mirror their gesture patterns, not every specific gesture, adopt a similar speaking pace and volume, reflect their energy level, calm, excited, serious. The key is subtlety. If it's obvious, it becomes off-putting. But when done naturally, mirroring creates powerful rapport. I watched a master negotiator use this technique brilliantly. His client was sitting with crossed arms, leaning back, clearly skeptical. Instead of trying to convince him immediately, the negotiator adopted a similar posture. He crossed his arms loosely, leaned back slightly, and matched the client's measured speech pace. Within 5 minutes, the client began to relax. 10 minutes later, both were leaning forward, arms uncrossed, deeply engaged in collaborative problem-solving. The negotiator led this shift by first matching, then gradually opening his own body language. The client followed unconsciously. Let's talk about proxemics, the study of personal space and distance. The physical distance between people communicates relationship and intention. In Western cultures, we have 4 zones: intimate distance, 0 to 18 inches, reserved for close relationships; personal distance, 18 inches to 4 feet, for friends and casual conversations; social distance, 4 to 12 feet, for professional interactions; public distance, 12 feet plus, for formal presentations. Understanding these zones helps you calibrate appropriate distance for each interaction. Standing too close can feel invasive and trigger discomfort. Standing too far can feel cold and disengaged. The sweet spot for professional influence is typically at the closer end of social distance, about 3 to 4 feet. This feels professional but warm. Advanced technique. You can test rapport by gradually decreasing distance. If the person remains comfortable or leans toward you, rapport is strong. If they step back or turn away, you've moved too close or rapport hasn't developed yet. Now let's discuss vocal influence, because your voice is technically nonverbal even though it carries words. How you speak matters as much as what you speak. 3 vocal elements dramatically impact your influence: pace, pitch, and power. Pace is your speaking speed. Speaking too fast signals anxiety or overeagerness. Speaking too slow can bore or frustrate. The ideal pace varies by context, but generally, 120 to 150 words per minute is conversational and engaging. Slow down for important points. This signals, pay attention, this matters. Pitch is the highness or lowness of your voice. Lower-pitched voices are generally perceived as more authoritative and trustworthy. Higher-pitched voices can sound less confident. If your natural voice is higher, you can train yourself to speak from your chest rather than your throat, which naturally lowers pitch slightly. Power is volume and energy. Speaking too softly makes you appear uncertain. Speaking too loudly can feel aggressive. The ideal is projecting clearly without shouting. Imagine speaking to someone 10 feet away without raising your voice. That's good vocal projection. Here's a powerful vocal technique: the strategic pause. Many people are uncomfortable with silence in conversation, so they fill every gap with words. But pauses are powerful. A pause before answering a question signals thoughtfulness. A pause after making an important point lets it sink in. A pause when someone else is speaking shows you're genuinely listening, not just waiting to talk. Try this exercise. In your next conversation, after someone finishes speaking, count to 2 before responding. This tiny pause makes you appear more thoughtful and less reactive. It also gives you time to formulate a better response rather than blurting the first thing that comes to mind. Let's discuss facial expressions, the most complex and nuanced aspect of nonverbal communication. Your face has over 40 muscles and can create thousands of distinct expressions. People read faces constantly, mostly unconsciously, to assess trustworthiness, emotion, and intention. The most universally recognized expressions are happiness shown through genuine smiles, anger displayed through furrowed brows and tightened jaw, fear revealed in widened eyes and raised eyebrows, sadness expressed through downturned mouth and drooping features, surprise indicated by raised eyebrows and open mouth, disgust shown through nose wrinkles and raised upper lip. For influence purposes, you want to master warm, open, engaged facial expressions. The genuine smile is your most powerful tool. Unlike a fake smile which only uses mouth muscles, a genuine Duchenne smile engages the muscles around your eyes, creating crow's feet. People unconsciously recognize this authenticity. Practice in front of a mirror. Think of something genuinely amusing or joyful while smiling. Notice how your whole face engages, not just your mouth. That's the expression that builds trust and likability. Now force a smile without genuine emotion. See how it looks different, more stiff and less engaging? People sense that difference even if they can't articulate why. Here's an advanced technique: micro-expressions. These are brief, involuntary facial expressions that flash across someone's face for less than a second, revealing true emotions before the conscious mind suppresses them. Learning to spot micro-expressions gives you insight into what people are really thinking and feeling beneath their controlled exterior. The key to reading micro-expressions: watch the face during transitions, like when someone first hears news or when conversation topics change. That's when genuine reactions appear before social masks go back up. You can't fake not having a micro-expression. They're too fast and automatic. Let me share one final crucial concept about body language: congruence. Congruence means your verbal and nonverbal messages align. When they don't align, people trust the nonverbal over the verbal every time. If you say you're confident but your body is closed, tense, and fidgety, people sense the mismatch and distrust you. This is why authenticity matters so much for influence. You can learn body language techniques, but if you're pretending to be confident while feeling terrified, the incongruence will show. The most powerful approach is work on genuine inner confidence and let that naturally express through aligned body language. As we close this chapter, here's your action step. Become more aware of your own nonverbal communication. Record yourself presenting or in conversation. Watch with the sound off. What messages is your body sending? Are you open or closed? Confident or nervous? Engaged or distracted? Then work on aligning your body language with the influence you want to create. Remember, you're always communicating non-verbally, whether you intend to or not. The question isn't whether to use body language for influence. The question is, will you use it consciously and strategically, or unconsciously and randomly? Master your nonverbal communication, and you master a huge component of influence. Chapter 6. Handling objections and resistance. Turning a no into yes-no is not the end of a negotiation. It's often the beginning. Most influence attempts encounter resistance. The amateur sees resistance as rejection and gives up. The master sees resistance as information and opportunity. When someone says no or raises an objection, they're actually giving you valuable information. They're telling you what concerns need to be addressed before they can say yes. Every objection is a doorway to deeper understanding and more effective influence. Let's start with the fundamental principle of handling resistance. Never argue directly. When you argue against someone's concern, you trigger psychological reactance, that defensive response where people dig deeper into their position just to prove they're right. Instead of arguing, you want to acknowledge, explore, and reframe. Here's the 3-step formula for handling any objection. Acknowledge the concern to show you're listening, explore the underlying issue through questions, reframe with new information or perspective. Let's see this in action. Objection. This is too expensive. Poor response. No, it's not. It's actually very reasonable compared to competitors. Why is this poor? Because you're directly contradicting their perception, which triggers defensiveness. Better response. I understand cost is a concern. Can I ask, when you say too expensive, are you comparing it to other solutions you've looked at, or is it about your current budget constraints? This explores the real issue behind the objection. Then, based on their answer, you can reframe. If it's about budget, I appreciate the budget reality. Let's look at payment options that spread the cost over time so it fits your budget. If it's about competitor pricing, that's helpful context. Let me show you the additional value you get with our solution that justifies the difference in price. Do you see the difference? You've acknowledged their concern, explored the real issue, and provided a thoughtful reframe. This feels like problem solving, not arguing. Now let's discuss the most common objections you'll encounter and how to handle each one. Objection 1. I need to think about it. This usually means one of 3 things. They're genuinely overwhelmed and need processing time, they're not convinced and don't want to say no directly, or they need to consult with someone else who has input on the decision. Your response. I completely understand. Big decisions deserve thought. To help you think through this effectively, what specific areas do you want to consider? This explores what's really happening. If they're specific, they're genuinely evaluating. If they're vague, they're probably not convinced yet. Then, would it be helpful if we scheduled a follow-up call in a few days so I can answer any questions that come up? This keeps the door open and demonstrates your confidence that further conversation will lead to yes. Objection 2. I'm happy with my current solution. This is actually a strong position because it means they're not actively looking for change. Status quo bias is powerful. People stick with what's familiar even when better options exist. Your response. That's great that you found something that works. Can I ask what you like most about your current solution? This shows respect and gathers information. Then, and is there anything about it that you wish worked differently or better? This uncovers dissatisfaction they may not have articulated. Now you can position your solution not as replacing what works, but as improving what doesn't. It sounds like your current solution handles X well. What we specialize in is Y and Z, which you mentioned would be improvements. Would you be open to seeing how we could complement what you already have? Objection 3. I don't have time right now. This might be true, or it might be a polite deflection. Your response determines which it is. Response: I respect that you're busy. I'm curious, is timing the only issue, or are there other concerns we should address first? This tests whether time is the real obstacle. If time is genuinely the issue, I understand. When would be a better time? I'd rather wait and have your full attention than rush this conversation. If there are other concerns, that's helpful to know. What would need to be true for this to be worth making time for? Objection 4. I need to talk to my partner, boss, team, etc. This means you haven't been talking to the true decision maker, or that decisions are made collaboratively. Response: absolutely. Who else is involved in this decision? This identifies all stakeholders. Then, what concerns or questions do you think they'll have? This lets you preemptively address objections. Then offer: would it be helpful if I joined that conversation to answer questions directly? Or, what information would be most useful for you to share with them? This positions you as a collaborative partner, not a pushy salesperson. Now let's discuss a powerful advanced technique: preemptive objection handling. This means raising and addressing likely objections before the other person brings them up. Why would you do this? Because it demonstrates transparency, builds trust, and neutralizes objections by framing them on your terms. Example: you might be wondering how we compare to competitor X, which is cheaper. Here's the key difference and why that difference matters. By raising this preemptively, you've shown you're not hiding anything, and you've framed the comparison favorably before they could frame it negatively. Another advanced technique: the feel, felt, found method. This is particularly effective for emotional objections. Here's the structure: I understand how you feel. Others felt the same way. Here's what they found. Example: I understand how you feel about the investment. Several of our now best customers felt the same hesitation initially. What they found was that the ROI appeared within 90 days, and they wished they'd started sooner. Can I show you their results? This technique works because you validate their emotion without judging it, you normalize it by showing others felt similarly, you redirect to positive outcomes, you use social proof implicitly. Let's talk about handling the hardest objection of all: the silent objection. This is when someone seems interested but then goes dark. They don't return calls or emails. They don't say no, but they also don't say yes. What do you do? First, understand that silence usually means one of these things. Your solution isn't a priority right now. They've chosen a different direction but haven't told you. They're genuinely busy and it's slipped their mind. They're uncomfortable saying no directly. Your response should acknowledge the silence directly but gracefully. I know you're busy and I haven't heard back. I want to respect your time. If this isn't the right fit or timing, I completely understand. Would you let me know either way so I know whether to follow up? This gives them an easy out, which paradoxically often gets them to re-engage. Why? Because you've removed pressure and shown respect for their autonomy. If they truly aren't interested, they'll appreciate the easy exit. If they were just busy, they'll appreciate the gentle reminder and your professionalism. Here's a critical mindset shift about objections. Every no brings you closer to yes. Sales professionals know this. The average successful sale involves 5 to 12 no's before the final yes. Each objection is an opportunity to understand better, refine your approach, and build stronger rapport. Never take objections personally. They're not rejecting you. They're expressing concerns about the decision. When you depersonalize objections, You handle them with curiosity rather than defensiveness, and curiosity is far more persuasive. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. A salesman was trying to close a major deal. The prospect raised 11 different objections over 3 meetings. A lesser salesman would have given up. This one leaned in. He addressed each objection thoroughly, asked clarifying questions, and used each concern as an opportunity to understand the prospect's business more deeply. On the 4th meeting, the prospect said, "I've thrown everything I can think of at you, and you've had thoughtful answers for all of it. I'm convinced. Let's move forward." The deal closed not despite the objections, but because of how they were handled. Your final mindset about resistance. Welcome it. Objections mean engagement. Silence and indifference are much harder to overcome than vocal concerns. When someone raises objections, it means they're seriously considering your proposal and working through their mental obstacles. That's progress, not setback. As we close this chapter, here's your practice assignment. Write down the 5 most common objections you encounter in your work or personal influence situations. For each one, write out the acknowledge, explore, reframe response using the frameworks we've discussed. Rehearse these responses so they become natural. The more prepared you are for objections, the more confidently and effectively you'll handle them in real time. Remember, objections are not walls. They're doors. Your job is to open them with empathy, curiosity, and strategic reframing. Master this, and you'll find that no rarely stays no for long. Chapter 7. Ethical Influence. The long game. We've covered powerful influence techniques throughout this book. But with power comes responsibility. This final chapter addresses the ethics of influence and why playing the long game always wins. Let's start with a fundamental distinction: persuasion versus manipulation. Persuasion respects the other person's autonomy and well-being. You present information, make compelling arguments, and ultimately let them decide freely. Manipulation removes autonomy. It uses deception, pressure, or exploitation of vulnerabilities to force a decision that serves you but harms them. The line between persuasion and manipulation isn't always clear, but here's a useful test. If the person had complete information about your motives and methods, would they still feel good about saying yes? If yes, you're persuading ethically. If no, you're manipulating. Ethical influence operates on 3 principles: transparency, mutual benefit, and respect for autonomy. Let's explore each one. Transparency means you're honest about your intentions and interests. You don't hide problems or exaggerate benefits. You acknowledge limitations and trade-offs. This doesn't mean you volunteer every negative detail unprompted. But when asked, you answer honestly. And you don't deliberately mislead through omission or misdirection. I once worked with a salesperson who was incredibly successful using completely transparent methods. When prospects asked about competitors, he'd say, "Competitor A is cheaper but doesn't include these features. Competitor B has this additional capability we don't offer. Here's why I believe our solution is the best fit for your specific needs." His honesty built such strong trust that customers became long-term advocates, referring others constantly. Mutual benefit means you genuinely care about the other person's outcome, not just your own. Yes, you want to make the sale, win the negotiation, or get the yes, but not at their expense. You're looking for win-win outcomes where both parties benefit. This might sound idealistic, but it's actually highly pragmatic. When you focus on mutual benefit, people trust you more, relationships last longer, referrals increase, and you sleep better at night. Short-term manipulation might get you a quick win, but it destroys long-term success. A colleague of mine turned down a lucrative consulting contract because he realized his solution wasn't the best fit for that particular client. He recommended a competitor instead. Did he lose that fee? Yes. Did he gain a reputation for integrity that led to 5 bigger contracts from referrals? Absolutely. That's the long game of ethical influence. Respect for autonomy means you genuinely allow people to choose freely. You present compelling arguments. You use influence techniques. But ultimately, you respect their right to say no without pressure, manipulation, or guilt trips. This is harder than it sounds because our ego gets involved. We start to see no as personal rejection. We push harder, trying to overcome objections through sheer force of will. But this always backfires. Even if you force a yes through pressure, you get a reluctant, resentful yes that leads to buyer's remorse, cancellations, or refusal to pay. The paradox of respecting autonomy is that it actually increases your influence. When people feel free to say no, they're more comfortable saying yes. When they feel pressured, they resist reflexively, even if your offer is genuinely good for them. Now let's address some common ethical dilemmas in influence situations. Dilemma 1. Should you use scarcity tactics if availability isn't truly limited? No. False scarcity is manipulation. But if there are genuine limitations, time constraints, limited capacity, communicate them clearly. People appreciate honest information about constraints. They resent fake urgency. Dilemma 2. Should you highlight only benefits and hide drawbacks? No. Acknowledge limitations or trade-offs when relevant. This builds trust and prevents buyer's remorse later. People respect honesty more than perfection. Dilemma 3. Should you continue pursuing someone who keeps saying no? Persistence can be appropriate if you're adding new information or addressing new concerns. But if someone has clearly, repeatedly declined, respect their decision. Continued pressure crosses into harassment. Dilemma 4. Should you use emotional manipulation if it gets results? No. Appealing to genuine emotions is fine. Exploiting vulnerabilities or manufacturing false emotions is manipulation. Ask yourself, am I connecting with authentic feelings or manufacturing inauthentic ones? Let me share a powerful perspective on ethical influence from Robert Cialdini, the researcher whose work on persuasion principles we discussed earlier. He distinguishes between persuasion and persuasion. Persuasion is creating the right environment and framing before you make your request. This is ethical because you're helping people see information in helpful contexts. Persuasion is making compelling arguments for your position. This is ethical when it's honest and respects autonomy. Manipulation is using deception, pressure, or exploitation. This is unethical regardless of outcomes. Most influence happens in the persuasion and persuasion categories. You're setting appropriate context, presenting information compellingly, and using psychological principles ethically. That's not just acceptable, it's skillful communication. Here's the ultimate test for ethical influence. Would you be comfortable if someone used these exact techniques on you or someone you love? If yes, proceed confidently. If no, reconsider your approach. Now let's talk about the long-term benefits of ethical influence. In the short term, manipulation sometimes works. You might force a sale, win a negotiation through deception, or pressure someone into agreement. But here's what happens long-term. Your reputation suffers, people avoid working with you, referrals dry up, relationships become transactional and fragile, stress increases, and success becomes unsustainable. Contrast this with ethical influence. Your reputation grows, people seek you out, referrals multiply, relationships deepen and expand, stress decreases, and success compounds over time. I've watched this play out over decades in business. The manipulators have short bursts of success followed by collapse and reinvention under new identities. The ethical influencers build steadily, compound their success, and create lasting legacies. Which path do you want? Here's a beautiful truth about ethical influence. It's actually easier than manipulation. You don't have to remember lies. You don't have to maintain false personas. You don't have to hide your methods or intentions. You can be fully authentic while still being strategically persuasive. That alignment is both effective and deeply satisfying. Let me share one final story that captures the power of ethical influence. A financial advisor built his entire practice on a radical approach. He turned away clients who didn't need his services. If someone came to him with a simple situation that didn't require professional management, he'd spend an hour giving them free advice and send them on their way. His colleagues thought he was crazy. Why turn away paying clients? But word spread about his integrity. People who were turned away told friends, "This guy actually cares more about what's right for you than making money." Those referrals became his best clients because they came pre-sold on his integrity. 20 years later, he has one of the most successful practices in his region, with clients who stay for life and refer constantly. His secret: he played the long game of ethical influence from day one. He built a reputation worth more than any individual sale. As we close this audiobook, I want to leave you with this. Influence is a skill, but ethics is a choice. You now have powerful tools for persuasion and influence. How you use them will define not just your success, but your character and legacy. Choose ethical influence. Choose transparency over deception. Choose mutual benefit over selfish gain. Choose respect for autonomy over pressure and manipulation. Choose the long game over short-term wins. When you do this consistently, something magical happens. You stop being seen as someone who's trying to influence people. You become someone people want to be influenced by. They seek your guidance. They trust your recommendations. They say yes more easily because they know you have their interests at heart. That's the ultimate influence. Not forcing people to say yes through tricks and pressure, but becoming the kind of person they want to say yes to. Build that reputation through ethical influence, and you'll never lack for opportunities, relationships, or success. Conclusion. Your influence journey begins now. We've covered an enormous amount of ground together in this audiobook. From the foundational psychology of influence to specific techniques for persuasion, from building trust and credibility to handling objections with grace, from body language secrets to the ethics of long-term success. But knowledge without application is just entertainment. The real question is, what will you do with what you've learned? Let me suggest a simple implementation plan. Start small. Don't try to use every technique tomorrow. Instead, choose one principle or technique from each chapter and practice it deliberately for a week. Master it before moving to the next one. Week 1. Practice emotional connection before logical persuasion. In every conversation, ask yourself, what emotion is driving this person? Connect there first. Week 2. Apply one of the 6 influence principles consciously in your interactions. Choose whichever feels most natural: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, or scarcity. Week 3. Focus on building trust through one specific behavior. Maybe it's admitting what you don't know. Maybe it's following through on small commitments. Pick one and execute it flawlessly. Week 4. Master one framing technique. Perhaps it's the loss frame, the identity frame, or the contrast frame. Use it repeatedly until it becomes natural. Week 5. Improve one aspect of your body language. Maybe it's eye contact, open gestures, or vocal pacing. Practice with full attention until it becomes automatic. Week 6. Practice handling one common objection using the acknowledge, explore, reframe formula. Get really good at one before tackling others. This gradual approach builds competence and confidence. 6 weeks from now, you'll have integrated 6 powerful new influence skills. 6 months from now, you'll be operating at a completely different level. 6 years from now, people will wonder how you became so naturally persuasive. But remember, influence isn't just a professional skill. It's a life skill. These principles apply to every relationship and interaction. Use them with your partner to create deeper connection. Use them with your children to inspire rather than force. Use them with friends to strengthen bonds. Use them with yourself to overcome internal resistance and create positive change. The hidden psychology of influence isn't really hidden at all. It's always been there, operating beneath the surface of every interaction. Now you see it. You understand it. You can work with it consciously and ethically. As you move forward, remember this. The most influential people aren't those who talk the most or push the hardest. They're those who understand human psychology deeply, communicate strategically, and build genuine trust over time. They make saying yes feel natural, desirable, and beneficial for everyone involved. That's the art we've explored together. That's the skill you're now equipped to develop. That's the journey you're embarking on. So go forth and influence ethically, persuade powerfully, and create value for everyone you interact with. The world needs more people who understand how to build consensus, inspire action, and create win-win outcomes. That person can be you. Your influence journey begins now. Make it count. Thank you for investing this time in learning the hidden psychology of influence. Now go make anyone say yes, not through manipulation, but through mastery. The power is yours. Use it wisely.